Alright, we got this 2006 Toyota Sienna here. I'm going to go ahead and service the front brakes. So come along for the ride, I'll show you how I do it. First we'll make sure the emergency brake is on. And we'll pop the hood. We'll chock the rear wheels so they don't go anywhere. Pop the hood up. Alright, from the front of the vehicle, we'll just go right underneath here. And we're going to jack it up right here. And put the jack right there, lift it up. And then we're going to put the jack stands. If you come up under the front of the vehicle right here, see those two notches right here? This one and this one? We're going to put the jack stand right in between them, just like that. That's the proper jack stand point on these vehicles. I'm going to put the jack stands on both sides. Just like that. And then lower the vehicle. While I'm thinking of it, don't ever get under a vehicle without jack stands. It's a good way to get killed. Alright, we got to take this hubcap off. Basically, all you got to do is give it a tug. It should come right off. If this wire pops out, it just rides in the groove right there. Just pops it back in. Just like that. And this little thing goes around the valve stems. In case it completely flies off and you don't know where it goes. It goes like that on the valve stem. Obviously, if you don't have an impact, you need to break these loose when the tire is still touching the ground. Then you can lift it up and then remove it. And well, here's the part number. If it was at all legible, you'd be able to see it right there. But we're going to go ahead and put the genuine article in here. Alright, while I'm thinking of it, some stuff you're going to need to do the job. Obviously, you're going to need some new brake pads. Like I showed you, these are the Toyota ones. They come with the shims. At least the fronts do. At the backs, I think you have to buy the shims separately. They also come with this moly lube that you can use to put on the backing plates, which I'll show you that's what I'm going to do. But I'm not going to use that stuff. I am going to use this purple ceramic extreme from Permatex. You can also use this CRC stuff. I like this stuff too. That's pretty much what this stuff is. And then I'll also be using some silicone paste for the slide pins. You need a 14mm socket or wrench, and maybe even a combination wrench in case the nut is on there too tight. You'll need something to push the caliper back in. You can use a tool specially made for it like this one, or you can use these type of clamps to push it back in. Obviously some rags. And alright, let's get going. Now I'm going to turn the steering wheel, to get this over here so it's easier to work on. Alright, on the bottom of the caliper here, we're just going to take this 14mm off. Just like that. That's all it is. And then we can take the caliper and just pull it up out of the way. And let me see if I can do it holding the camera. Yeah, let me put the camera down for a second. Alright, you can see there's a little dust boot right here. So all you got to do, just peel the dust boot back off just a hair. Let me show you. Just peel this dust boot back off just a little bit. That's all you got to do. Then you can pull the slide pin out. just set it up on the top, just like that. That's all you got to do. Done. One bolt, that's it. While I'm thinking of it, don't let the caliper hang by the brake hose. Now sometimes you may find when taking this bolt out that this wants to turn. You're gonna have to hold it with a 17mm wrench, but your wrench has to be pretty skinny to fit in there. Otherwise you're not going to be able to get the wrench past the caliper on here, so just be aware of that. Usually you can spin them off just like I showed without having to touch this, but every once in a while this thing spins and you got to hold it still. Alright, while we're here, I'm going to clean off these slide pins. And this one, same thing, you just pop it over the rubber boot, take it off. Just clean up any crap and stuff that are on there with a rag. And then Toyota recommends you put some lithium based soap grease, I think they call it. You can go try to buy that. Maybe I'll list the part number if I really feel like it. I just use 3M silicone paste. I always use it for the slide pins on all the vehicles I service. It works great. Just a little bit, just like that. That's all you need. Just pop it back in. Make sure the dust boot pops over. You want it to be in a neutral position just like that. You don't want it to be weighing like that. You don't want to be popped out like that. So just make sure it's right in the neutral. Just a little bit is all you need. It goes a long way. Alright, we'll pop these old pads out. And like I said, there's plenty of pad on there. The only reason we're replacing them is the shims kept moving around and making all kinds of racket because these are cheap aftermarket brake pads. So let's go ahead and get some new ones. Now while I'm here, what I like to do is pop these little support clips out. Come on. Sometimes they're jammed in there. I like to clean these off, or at least inspect them. Usually I'll hit them with a wire wheel, but clean all the crap and junk off of there. And if they're all rusted up and they don't look like they're in good shape, don't reuse them. Go get some new ones. I'm going to clean these up on the wire wheel real quick and I'll be right back. In there, as you can see, they're not perfect, but they're much better than they were. They'll work. While I'm thinking of it, this thing is full of used brake dust. Don't be breathing this stuff in. If you're going to be sanding and scraping and moving stuff around, wear a mask or something like that. Just be careful. Now, what I like to do, I just put the tiniest bit, whoops, not quite that much, tiniest bit of this purple brake lube on the front and back of these little clips. Just a tiny bit, just to help it prevent squeal and prevent it from getting stuck in there, and get it out next time. I'll just take it and just wipe off the excess with my fingers. Yep, just so there's a slight film on there, and that's it. And then we'll put them back. They'll snap into place. Don't get the brake grease all over the calipers. If you do, make sure to wipe it off. I do the same on both. Just put a small amount, put it back. Snap it back into place, that's all you have to do. Now, make sure your cap is loose up here, because we're going to push in the caliper now while I'm thinking of it, the piston. And I'm just going to use this tool, and I'll use the old pad, and then we'll just gently push it back in. And you need to keep an eye on the fluid level. If the fluid level starts getting up too high, I can see it right here, I'm watching it. If it gets too high, you're going to have to stop and get some of that fluid out. I usually just use a little pump it into an old container. and we're fine on the fluid. If your fluid hasn't been changed in a long time, if it's grimy, nasty, don't do this. I would probably bleed your or flush your fluid out. Just crack the bleeder on here and flush the fluid out, get all clean fluid in there, and then I would do my brakes. Or you can pop the bleeder open and pinch the hose and push it back this way, so you're not pushing that old nasty fluid back in there. I know this fluid is pretty clean, so I'm not worried about it. Just something to think about. And just push it all the way back in till the piston is flat in there. And you can see the boot is nice and tucked back in there. If it isn't, make sure you can just use a pocket screwdriver or something and just tuck the boot that's around here back into position in case it gets popped out. Now what I like to do, I'll take my take the pads, and this is also what Toyota recommends. Put just a little bit, just another thin coating of brake lube. You can use the stuff that Toyota gives you, or you can use this stuff or whatever. Put it on the back of the pad just like that. And then take your shim, and position your shim in the middle. Pop it on. And then also, what I do, and Toyota doesn't tell you to do this, but I always do it on the brakes so I don't get squeals. I just put a little bit right on the backing plate right there. And then I put a tiny bit on the ears right up here. Don't need much, especially because we already put a thin little coating. Tiny bit right on the ears, and then without touching the pad, just slide it back home just like that. Then we'll do the other one. It's a thin little coating. Take our shims and put it back on there. Now with some clean gloves, and you can see where I'm putting this on. On the back, I put it in the center because that's where the piston is. On this outside, I'll put it right here and right here, right here and right here, because that's where it contacts the caliper on this side. And like before, just a thin coat. That's all you need. Or at least that's all I put. Told you I always like to put some right on the ears, right on the top and the bottom. Help it slide. So these you got to be a little more careful in getting it in without touching everything. Slide it into place just like that. Alright, now that we have everything lubed up, got their slide pins lubed, and we got the brake pads all lubed, slide the pin back into place just like that. Make sure the boot pops over just like it did right there. And then bring your caliper down like that and get it lined up with the bottom bolt, and then just take your bottom bolt, put it back in. You might have to wiggle this just a little bit to get it started. This is where you take your 14mm wrench and get it snug. And this is only 25 foot-pounds, so we'll grab a torque wrench, make sure these are both 25, because that's not much at all. Really, you don't need to tighten these much at all. 25 is not much. Alright, I got a 3/8 inch torque wrench set to 25 foot-pounds. You can see just that little bit I did puts it right at 25, so you can see it doesn't need much. And really, a torque wrench is overkill on this, but I just wanted to show you the proper procedure. Alright, now we'll go back in, straighten out the steering wheel, and you can put your cap back on, snap it back into place. It's .3 fluid. If you need to add any fluid in there, you can use any kind as long as it's .3. Just visually check the level. Ours is right here. We're good right now, but it's not on a level surface. We'll get this thing lowered back on the ground, and we'll double check the fluid level after it's on the ground. Make sure to put these with the cone in. Make sure you get this wheel centered on the hub. And these lug nuts are 76 foot-pounds, I believe. So we will, I have a 66 foot-pound torque limiting stick on here. So we'll just knock it down to that, and we'll do the final torque on the ground. Come on. Pull your stands out and make sure everything's clear before you lower the vehicle back down. Good to go. That's all you got to do to put it back. Alright, now that the vehicle's on level ground, we'll make sure our fluid level looks okay, and it does. We're good there. And we'll go ahead and pull the chocks off our wheels here. Get those out of the way, you don't want to forget those. And we'll go ahead and close the hood. And now we'll pump the brakes one more time, and then we'll we'll start the car, pump the brakes, and take it for a test drive. Alright, we'll start the car. Pump the brakes a couple times, get a nice firm feel. Yeah, that feels good. And we'll take it for a drive. And there you go. That's how I do the front brakes on a Toyota Sienna. I'll pump up the brakes a little bit, make sure I got pressure. Then I'll move the vehicle very slowly, make sure the brakes work. Very important. And then I'll do a short, quick bed-in process to make sure the new pads bed in correctly. So hey, if this video helped you, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.